And what I've realized is that when you get older, you're just naturally less curious because unfortunately, knowledge and experience is almost like the killer of curiosity.
Yeah.
So if you ever hear yourself saying, "Oh, I know that," well, do you really? Do you really? Because the world changes right before your eyes, and so my book talks about how being curious is critical. And we get less curious as we get older. And so people ask me for help, and I saw, unfortunately, that they were making a lot of the same mistakes I was making. And so I came to the conclusion that, for me anyway, a lot of these issues were around execution, not about strategy, especially when your company is younger, smaller. Most of us don't really have strategy issues, even though we think we do. Most of us in that early stage of the company have an inability to deliver what we've promised. It's called making your commitments.
Hey, welcome to this week's episode of The Freedom Experience. I'm your host, John Moncrief, and today I'm excited to introduce my guest, Patrick Thean. He's an international speaker, a CEO coach, and a serial entrepreneur whose mission is to help leaders build great companies and achieve their dreams. Now, Patrick's journey began when he was named Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year in North Carolina after growing his first business to number 151 on the Inc. 500 list. Since then, he's been on a mission to share his wisdom with CEOs worldwide, guiding them through the complexities of leadership and high growth success. So Patrick's the best-selling author of Rhythm, How to Achieve Breakthrough Execution and Accelerate Growth. And now his latest book talks about the CEO or the journey to CEO success and 7 practices for high growth leadership. And the book distills over 20 years of his executive coaching experience, offering battle-tested strategies that are going to help companies like yours to reach the valuations and the goals that you're trying to achieve. And Patrick's methods have been integrated into programs at EO and MIT and Cornell University, and his leadership tools have been proven to drive extraordinary success for CEOs. So in today's conversation, we'll explore the importance of curiosity in leadership, how staying curious can help leaders navigate cultural differences, foster alignment, and discover opportunities for growth. We talk about hiring for core values over skills and why aligning with company culture and fostering curiosity are essential for building high-performing teams. And then finally, we talk about execution and why it fails often and how to fix it, the role of prioritization and visualization and alignment in overcoming things like shiny objects syndrome and driving real growth. So Patrick's journey from scaling his own companies to coaching leaders globally, this conversation is packed with invaluable insights and you won't want to miss it. Let's dive into my conversation with Patrick. Patrick, welcome to the show. Great to have you on. Looking forward to talking to you today.
Thank you very much, Jean. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Excellent. Well, the way I kind of really got to know you, I think, is your travels around the world, where you've been showing your new book, The Journey to CEO Success. And I really kind of connected with what you were doing. I was reading the book at Istanbul airport and saw you, it could have been in Japan, but I'd followed you all around the world as you were showing this new book. And that's what got me really excited about the book. What's something that maybe you learned along your travels this time around?
Yeah, my travels were both business and pleasure. And I've had the privilege of serving customers in multiple continents. So I think I went to Singapore. I served a public company in Singapore, served the CEO and the executive team. And then I went on to Korea. I went on to Japan, and Japan was more for fun. But I learned a lot about the culture and how to interact with people. So one thing I've learned along the way is that people do business differently in every country, not because they have different rules, but because they have different backgrounds, different culture. And I think it is wise for us to think hard about that. And when I bring my American colleagues to Singapore, for example, Singapore is an interesting place because it is English speaking. I'm from Singapore, and we all sound the same. So we speak perfect English and sound the same, but culture is a little bit different. How people receive what you say can be a little bit different. And so I've been, I think, a child of multicultural my entire life. And I grew up in Singapore. I came to the US to study when I was 17 years old and had all the culture shock at 17. And I've served uh, companies in Switzerland, in England, in Italy, in Singapore, in Malaysia, Hong Kong. So I've served people in different countries. And the key lesson I'll share is first, be very curious about what people are thinking, what the culture is. Don't assume that when they say something and put it in our mindset, whichever mindset you're from. You're over there in Switzerland, I'm over here in the United States. So wherever we are, we're going to have our filter,
Yeah.
our mindset, our filter. So just be really careful that when somebody says something from a different culture, it may mean something a little bit different from what you expect because you have your cultural filter on.
This was one of the key things, or the key parts of your book out of the 7 systems, is being curious. And we do live in a world now where we are hiring people all over the place. It's not sort of the geographical community that we live in where the business is based. So we really need to be able to tune into this properly. And
Yes. And
what?
my client in Singapore is very interesting. It's about multicultural. They have someone who is of Dutch descent. They have someone a couple of Americans. They have Singaporeans. And even Singaporeans. Some are very very deep in local Singapore culture, and some are kind of like me who've been like exposed to the United States, or some been exposed to Europe. So it is a melting pot. And so I see today more and more the companies I work with in the executive team is multicultural right there in the
Yeah.
executive. Yeah.
This was, I guess, something that I noticed about your book was, of all of the systems seem to, and I think I was saying this to you before we hit the record button, that they all feel like they deal with, maybe it's not the right word, but the softer issues in the business, or the softer side of the business, people, core purpose, things that very often CEOs shy away from. And I think in my experience, that's one of the big barriers to their growth, to so leadership and growing the business, is dealing with the softer side of the business. So I'd be keen to hear your take on the, because it's obviously a big part of your thinking in writing the
Yes.
book.
Yeah. I would say that it's that you call it the soft side. I call that. I guess I think of that as the when I wrote the book. It really came from a place of I've been coaching and helping folks for 24 years. And I invited Michael Prager, my
Yeah.
first customer, who's still my customer after 24 years, not sick of me yet, to be my co-author, because I really wanted to glean like the best learnings from various customers and Michael. And so what you have in that book is 7 key practices. And it's interesting that it's on the softer side in the sense that the one chapter on key performance indicators will be the one about using it as a leading indicator.
Yeah.
So what I believe is that most of us, we get into a rut. We get used to certain key performance indicators. We get used to certain practices, and then we get surprised. We get blindsided, right? If you've been in business long enough, you've been surprised. And when you're surprised on the negative side, not a good thing. To me, it's like getting slapped on the face, being smashed with a freight train, and it's always very expensive. So I think I talk about key performance indicators to think about them from the perspective of leading indicators. Now, you started by asking me about curiosity. I do think that, especially if you've been in business for a long time, and I turned 60 last year, celebrated my 60th birthday. And what I've realized is that when you get older, you're just naturally less curious because, unfortunately, knowledge and experience is almost like the killer of curiosity.
Yeah.
So if you ever hear yourself saying, "Oh, I know that," well, do you really? Do you really? Because the world changes right before your eyes, and so my book talks about how being curious is critical. And we get less curious as we get older. So Michael and I would talk about some of the best hires that he made, and most of the time we make the mistake of hiring for skill.
Okay.
We talk about it. We'll say, hey, we really should hire for values and culture. But I've seen my clients, and even I've made that mistake of, oh my God, this person has such great talent.
Yeah.
You hire that person, the person comes in, and it's just all in water with the company. It's like, oh my God. And that was a very expensive mistake. Well, that's one. The second one would be we thought they had the same core values. They came in, uh, but then they use their experience as a hammer. It's like, hey, can you please explain to me why we should do it this way? I don't have time to do that. No, just do it because I said so, because I've been there and you
Mhm.
haven't. So anytime someone says that, I'll say, please stop, because you should really use your experience as a sieve, as a sieve to understand what you can bring to the table for this different company, and then use your experience to help develop somebody else. Now, to do that, you got to be curious. You got to ask yourself, well, what is it about this unique situation that I just don't know about?
Yeah.
And I found that when people do that, it opens their minds and they begin to see things they didn't see before. So I think I'm trying to help a lot of my clients, CEOs, to see things that they haven't seen before. And I guess you say it ends up being on the softer side, which is great. I never thought of it that way. You gave me a gift today, and you shared that with me earlier. I was like, that made me think. And so therefore, I'm applying curiosity now. I'm saying, okay, well, interesting. You sit on the softer side. I'm thinking now, like, what do I not know about the softer side? So
Yeah.
that's how I'm reacting to that, right? So that is a learned practice for me. I wasn't, I think that, look, I've coached Michael Prager for 24 years, and most of my clients I've coached him for many, many, many years. My What I do to stay fresh with them is I ask myself, when I walk into this meeting with Michael Prager, what is he going to share with me about him that I don't yet know? And then it becomes like I get excited and I get rejuvenated to have that coaching session with Michael. Because otherwise, you can think about it, right? I mean, I've been coaching this guy for 24
Yeah.
years. Why isn't he sick of me yet? And why am I not sick of him yet, right? I mean, it cuts both ways. So for me, I turn on curiosity and I say, what don't I yet know? What don't I yet know about this guy? What don't I yet know about his company? It's a moving, living company. Things have changed. They always change. So that's kind of my way of, I think, maintaining my presence to be 100% present for my customer, not get bored, not think I already know something. I may know something, but
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay
I,
to open myself to curiosity.
I love it. I just want to go back to the hiring side of that, though. So when you're out there looking for the right people and you kind of find that they've got the core values, they've got the skills, how do you start looking for almost making sure that they are actually curious? Because a lot of times we do hire people into the business who we think can make a big difference, but it
Yeah.
doesn't work out. So how do you integrate that into your hiring process?
So the first thing I would say is, how many questions do they ask? So are they more interested in impressing me about them,
Yeah.
or are they more interested in me? So, I heard years ago, I attended a conference with Jim Collins, author of Good to Great. And Jim Collins said in his speech, he said, spend more time um, being interested, less time trying to be interesting. That stuck with me. And so if you're interested, you are more curious. And so that's one of the tells I would look for is that person more interested in learning, or is that person more interested in showing off how good or how strong that person is? And I also think it tells me a lot about the person's capability to be vulnerable. So again, the softer side, you're right though. As I think about it more, the world today loves more vulnerable leaders. It appears that way.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
And I think, therefore, if a leader is able to be vulnerable, we can tell from the questions they're asking, from how they show off themselves. And I think if a leader is not willing or able to work on themselves, then I don't think they have the right to work on others. I know that sounds a bit harsh, but if you're not going to wake up every day and say, hey, you know, how do I be a better version of myself, then I don't think you have the right to tell me what I'm doing wrong. It just kind of feels weird. It feels insincere if you're not working on yourself and you're telling me I got to be better. So to me, this is a little bit about like leading by example.
Yeah.
If I want you to grow, I got to be growing. That kind of stuff.
I love that because it made me think of, I think, a line from your book. I think you were having a conversation with a potential client, and you said something along the lines of, how do you know it's them and not you? The fish rots from the head
Yes.
down kind of thing. And
Yes.
I think as founders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, leaders, we always sort of look at everybody else before we point the finger back and look at the mirror as ourselves. And that's where the real change comes from. And
Yes.
it's,
Yeah, that was a memorable phone call because I get these calls all the time, but I don't always say what I said in that section. Something about the way the gentleman shared about his needs, and I recall it. He was very unhappy with his team, and he wants me to come in and fix his team. And so when people use words like that, fix my team and help me fire people and stuff like that. First of all, I don't do that. I don't come in to fix teams. I I help you see what you need and I help you execute way, way, way better than you executed before. But I don't fix teams. I don't come in and fire people. So it just instinctively made me think. And so to me, this is a demonstration of me being vulnerable on the call. In fact, my salesperson, when she heard the story, was shocked. Because it's like, oh my god, you could have lost the deal. I'm like, I'm not caring about the deal at all. I'm being vulnerable. I care about that person, and that's why I said fish rots from the head down. And if it's your team, we have a process for that. But what if it's you? Would you consider that it could maybe be you? Now, his answer then this made me decide whether or not I even want him as a customer.
yeah,
Because I have had the experience of working for a couple of CEOs that were not vulnerable, did not believe they had a problem at all, and all they want to do was complain about their team and to fix them. And on a different occasion, different CEO, I had lunch with the person. He paid for everything and my time, and then I shared with him that I think he doesn't need to have any more coaching sessions with me. And he was surprised, and he said why? I said I think that you, it, these sessions are not meant to be therapy. They're not meant to have you complain about your team. It's really about you. Like, I'm here to help you grow as a CEO. And if you are interested in that, then I'm your guy. If you're not interested in that or you can't bring yourself to that point, then not that you're a bad guy. It just means
yeah,
I can't bring my talents to help you. And if that's true, I don't want you paying for my time. And he laughed and he
yes.
says, "Wow, you're a cool guy and the worst consultant I know. Like, but it's easy for you to take my money and have lunch with me, and you're not wanting to do that." So I think for me, before this interview, you asked me about like how. Well, you didn't ask me, but we talked a bit about renewing ourselves and being in business a long, long, long time. So for me, I try very hard to be very to check myself, but what takes away my passion for my business, and from the work I do, and what adds passion. So for me, if I can help you achieve your dreams, and if I can help you be the best version of yourself as a leader, I am passionate to help you.
That
Um,
energizes you, right? It fuels you
yes,
up. Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
And if it doesn't, then I don't really want to, regardless of who pays for my time, I don't really want to spend my time that way. I think this may have happened to me. A life story I'll share with you is when I was in my 40s, one of my mentors shared with me that he learned that he said it took me 50 plus years to learn this, but I only want to work with people I love. He said it's so easy to care for people I love. When I work for people I don't like, my God, it's just hard to care for them. So when he shared that with me, I thought, you know what? I don't have to wait till I'm 55 to learn that. He just taught me that. And so I was 40 and I said, okay, moving forward, I will only work with people that I want to work with that I think I can love. Otherwise, I don't want to spend my time there because he explained to me how precious time was.
I love
So
it.
I
Yeah.
saw the world from a 55-year-old's perspective when I was 40 years old. And I said, why do I have to wait till I'm 55 and look back and regret like all the hours I've spent with people I don't enjoy? I can start today, So I kind of use that as my mantra to say, okay, I'm only going to work with people I enjoy, I love, and I've seen that actually that works really well for me.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I listened to an interview with you and Michael, and you could see the sort of dynamic in the energy between the two of you. You've been working with him as a client for 20 plus years, gone to the point where you've actually created a book together. It's an amazing story. You really have to love your client to be able to do things like that, I guess. Well done.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant. I was quite interested in what you were saying about how we change over time. Um, you've been coaching for 20 years. Before that, you had a different life where you built up a business, Medicis, and you went through many of the same challenges yourself, I guess. What were you
Yes.
like as a CEO back then?
So, back then, that's the early 90s. That was 1991 when I started Medicis, and I was young and dumber than I think I was. So, I started my career at Oracle Corporation. I was a consultant there, and I was there for 2 years and 9 months. And Oracle's a great place. Oracle's at the time, Oracle was the kind of place where you could pretty much do anything
Yeah,
as long as you're delivering, working towards the right goals. Our managers, my bosses were very open to creativity as long as we achieved the goal and got to the goal faster. So Oracle taught me um, that the only way to grow a company is to grow it hyper fast, which is wrong, just so you know. But unfortunately, that's all I knew. So when I started Medicis, that's all I thought. Like the company's supposed to be hyper growth and damn the torpedoes, that kind of a thing. And of course, back then, every young entrepreneur in those days, their model would have been Steve Jobs, Michael
yeah,
Dell. I mean, tech entrepreneurs, Steve Jobs, Michael Dell, Bill Gates. So I think back then I was much more brash, much more aggressive. I didn't have kids. I worked 24/7, um, and so that was what I was like. I've always cared about people, in spite of that aggression and drive. I've always cared about people. So we grew that business very quickly. We sold it in 7 years. We were number 151 on the Inc. 500, and we won a lot of awards along the way. And after I sold that business, I reflected and I thought, there were many days where disaster and failure was just right around the corner. If I made this
pushed it to the
decision,
edge.
it would have been the other way. And I saw the cash wall coming towards me, and I barely escaped it at least 5 times. Um, Made payroll, not knowing how I would make payroll. And I'm very proud of the fact that I've never missed a payroll in any company I've ever run. But those are stressful times, and so from the outside looking in, we looked very successful. But from the inside looking out, I felt like I was just running from one crisis to another, solving one problem, and was with a combination of intelligence, instinct, and guts got me through a lot of these things. Made some of the right decisions, and the wrong decisions that I made, I was able to escape them like Houdini. Then I realized that this is really not how you want to run a business. After I sold the company, a lot of people asked me for help. Here in Charlotte, not a lot of tech firms. So I
Yeah,
also started the Entrepreneurs Organization chapter for Charlotte, North Carolina, as my way of giving back to my entrepreneurial community. And so people asked me for help, and I saw, unfortunately, that they were making a lot of the same mistakes I was making. And so I came to the conclusion that, for me anyway, a lot of these issues were around execution, not about strategy, especially when your company is younger, smaller. Most of us don't really have strategy issues, even though we think we do. Most of us in that early stage of the company have an inability to deliver what we've promised. It's called making your commitments.
yeah.
And so I really began to realize that, wait a minute, if we could really focus on making our commitments, a lot of our problems would go away. And so that really started the genesis of me thinking for the last 20 years, like, why is it that CEOs and companies don't make it? Why is it that they can't make the commitments? And why is it that the failure rate of CEOs and founders are so high? It's really high. Like if you look at, it's a really tough job. I mean, if you look at companies which are say north of 10, 20 million, most of them aren't run by the founders. Most are run by somebody else.
Yeah.
Now, if the founder chose a different path, that's fine. But a lot of them were replaced. That's not fine.
No.
So I care deeply about the CEO, the person that is ultimately responsible and accountable for the success of the company. I think that person has a rather lonely life if they're not careful. And I just want to make their life better. And more importantly, I want to help them achieve their dreams because they're dream chasers. I think of myself as a dream chaser, and all my clients, every company started with a dream. Every company started with someone thinking they're gonna do something, whether it's great or something small, but it started with a dream, right? You don't just unless all you want to do is make a penny.
Yeah.
But most of us don't do that. Most of us are like, we want to bring this thing to life. We want to do this one. So usually these all start with a dream, and sometimes along the way, people may forget their dreams. Life drags them down, and they forget the dreams. I want to help people reignite their dreams and achieve their dreams.
I love that. Yeah. That's so important. I mean, going back again to what you were saying about execution as the issue here and the failure rate of CEOs. I'm curious about what you're thinking. I mean, why is it that we're just so bad at executing, and what's the problem there that we've got?
So I believe that most of us we don't have enough time and we don't prioritize correctly. So when we do what's in front of us, and that's why my first book actually, or my previous book, Rhythm, gives a process of thinking, planning, and doing.
Yeah.
And it's so simple, a fifth grader can understand it. You want to think, you want to plan, and then you want to do the work. And I think this probably came from, I'm an engineer, I'm an electrical engineer by training. So I think and then as a software engineer at Oracle, I learned the importance of analysis, strategy, analysis, and design before you write even one line of code. If you don't do that well, then you end up doing a lot more time in quality analysis, quality assurance, and correction of code. Which, by the way, nobody likes that. Like nobody likes to spend X amount of time writing code and then more time correcting their mistakes. Nobody likes that. Why can't you build it right up front? Well, it's hard to do, but it's easy to do if you spend more time in analysis and design. So that is no different from thinking. So lots of times what happens is entrepreneurs and CEOs get excited about an opportunity and they prioritize it without thinking about the other things that they should have prioritized.
Yeah.
And then something else happens, and so now they tell the team, whoa, wait. I need you to do this thing as well. Okay, well, I don't have enough energy to do A and B. Which one do you want me to do? No, I want you to do both. I want you to do A and B. Okay, well, what about C, D, E, F, G? So if you don't prioritize, then what happens is your team begins to flip flop between A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and as you this is called task switching. As you switch tasks like that, you can't focus. So your time, from an efficiency standpoint, really goes down. You get less done, frankly.
Yeah.
So Stephen Covey had a lot of research about the power of prioritizing. Right, he called it "put first things first." One of his 7 habits of highly effective people, and I believe that to be very true. I think that we need to spend enough time thinking to decide what are the things we're going to really focus on. And then we're going to spend enough time planning so we all agree on the how. How are we going to do the work? Now, most people don't do that. Most people think that they're done with planning once they have decided what they want to do. But in my book, I talk about how it's important to visualize, to get full alignment. And that's really about how we're going to do the work, how I'm going to collaborate with you, how you're going to help me, how I'm going to help you, etc. And then finally, go do the work. Now, when you think of it that way, it's hard to do that because you got to believe that the time you spent in thinking and prioritizing the planning piece, in spite of the fact that you have a crisis going on, you're still better off pulling yourself up, thinking and planning, and then attacking the crisis. So I think it's counterintuitive because instinctively you're like, my house is burning, I gotta put the fire out, right? But before you put the fire out, yes, I agree. but take a bit of time to think about your approach to the fire. Think about and then plan your extinguishing routes so that no one gets hurt while you're putting out the fire. Right? Do that a little bit versus just rushing in and putting out the fire. So I think instinctively we all want to just rush in and put out the fire, but really God gave us a brain that makes us different from all the other animals. So we should really use that brain and spend more time thinking. By the way, I've made that mistake many times too.
Yeah.
And one time I was really funny. I was stressing about something, and my daughter, who at the time was very young, I think she was like 12, and she saw me stressing, and this is my second daughter, and she said to me, her name's Nicole, and she said to me, "Dad, it's simple. You already wrote the book on it. Think, plan, do." And I thought, oh my God, okay, so take a breath, and just start thinking about it. And as I started doing that and relaxing a little bit in the thinking process, my brain got out of the vice. And now I saw multiple ways to solve the problem. Whereas before that, I only saw one way to solve the problem. And I'll assure you that if you only have one way to solve a problem, it is highly likely that it's not the best way, right? So if you just take your brain out of that vice, think about it a little bit, ask somebody, you might find two or three more ways to solve the problem. And so over time, I've learned that I need to be a little bit more patient. Like, I come up with solution one, solution two, but until I hit solution three and maybe four, I probably don't have the best solution yet.
So it's actually taking that moment to step back and just say, hang on, let me think about this first.
Yes.
There's always going to be fires. Let me step back, think about them. What do we got to focus on this quarter, this year, whatever it is? What are our priorities? How does this fit in? And what are the options for solving it? So it's not going to take us, kind of derail us too much. Because I feel like most of us entrepreneurs have that shiny object syndrome. We either, let's grab the latest trend for marketing at the moment because we've got to drive more leads, or let's go over there and do this, or this customer thing's on fire, so we should implement something, we've seen something else. And as you say, it stretches the team a mile wide and inch deep, and they never get anything done.
Yeah.
And it's just step back, think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the plan process, one of the philosophies I like to share is I want people to understand that when they say yes to something, they have inadvertently said no to a bunch of other things.
So true.
So
Yeah.
lots of times people don't think that way. They think I had a session once with a client. And I said, give me your number one most important priority. He couldn't do that. And he said, well, I got 10 of them. I said, I know you do. That's why I asked you, what is your most important priority? What is number one? He thought about it again. He came back. He said, well, 1A is this, 1B is this, 1C is this. I said, stop. You're not choosing. Yeah, you're not choosing. You're not choosing. They're all, he said, I can't, they're all number ones. Now, the truth is, that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true that they're all number ones. In fact, if you think that they're all number ones, you're going to be stuck in analysis paralysis. You won't know which one to do first. So what people need to understand is that if you have limited energy, which we all do, when you say yes to something, you have put forward, I don't know, 20%, 30%, 50% of your energy if it's big enough.
Yeah.
So now you only have a certain amount of energy left. If you do that a couple of times, you can maybe afford to tackle 3, maybe 4, at the very most 5 priorities. And the rest of them won't get done. You can put them on your list, but they probably won't get done, or they get done poorly. And so I like to say you need to choose your priorities, or fate will choose for you, right? In other words, a bunch of them won't get done, but you wouldn't have chosen which ones don't get done. And so the most important one may not have gotten done. And then you get upset with your team because they didn't get the most important one done. But actually, the problem was the leader didn't choose. So that's why I often ask the CEO, are you sure it's your team, or is it you? Because that's why you get paid the big bucks, buddy. You're supposed to choose. You're supposed to choose. You're supposed to say, today, coffee more important than tea. Okay? That's the choice you make. And okay, maybe I prefer coffee, maybe you prefer tea. Too bad, I chose it. Coffee
That's it.
versus tea. right? And then we need to stick with that choice. So I think a lot of people don't understand that when they prioritize and say yes to something, they need to also think about all the things that actually said no to. So when we do planning sessions with our clients, I actually make them make a list of not doing items. So I tell them, look, these are the things you've chosen, right? Yes. Now please make a list of all the things that you're not going to do. And that's where the real fireworks begin, because different executives they'll put down, oh, that means we're not going to do this, 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 this. And then another voice in the room would say, whoa, wait a minute. You can't not do that one. Oh, but that's what we meant when we said we're putting all our energy into these four. So that one didn't make the list. And then let's have that discussion now.
It's
So
so
that's about the
important.
how.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get everybody aligned
That's about
around
getting
that.
fully aligned.
And you
So
talked about,
most people don't get misaligned by choice. Like most executives I've met aren't devious to think, oh, we'll go into the planning meeting and I purposely won't align myself with Patrick on purpose. No, it's not like that. Usually we agree, yes, these are the most important things, but then we come out and we start doing other things because those were important as well. So what I try to do in a planning session is all the as wells need to be on the wall so we can
okay,
debate them and agree that while they're important as well, they're not as important as these five that we've chosen or these three that we've
gotcha.
chosen.
Yeah.
And therefore, we will do these instead of that. Therefore, from this list, it won't get done. So now you can swallow your disappointment and go out there and plan for what's not getting done. So people don't realize that. They think they're going to plan for what they're going to do, yes, but they're also going to plan for what's not
Gonna
getting
get done.
done, right?
Brilliant. Well, you talk about visualization in terms of alignment as well, and how I'm curious about how you make that a reality as well. This technique of visualization.
So a couple different techniques. One is we do have this thing called the destination postcard.
Okay.
Destination postcard was actually written in my previous book, the book called Rhythm. And in destination postcard, I tell people to, when they plan for the year, to put themselves in a time machine, go to the end of the year, get off the time machine, and you had a brilliant year. And now talk about what you saw, why the year was brilliant from the past tense. Because you're in the future now. You're
Mm.
future man. You've traveled to December 31st, 2025 in this case. And now you're looking backwards and you're talking about stuff like in the past tense. So that helps us visualize, because I've learned that not everyone can visualize. I used to think visualization is actually quite easy, but that's because I'm a visual guy. But most of us, some of us, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of us have trouble visualizing. So what I try and do is I try and have people tell stories. Like, okay, this happened, and because this happened, these three things happened, and they begin to be able to visualize. The second thing I would say about visualization is we, in our goal setting, we create what we call a red, yellow, green process. And green is the goal. So when I ask people to write their goals, I'll say, hey, also tell me what green looks like.
Okay.
And so now we're in a visualization conversation without them even realizing. And they'll say, well, green, for this to be green, this has to happen, this has to happen, this has to happen. I'll say, okay, so so let's document what green looks like, and then I want you to think about what disaster looks like, so that you know how to avoid it, so that you know how to plan against it. So what's red, what's unacceptable, and they'll write that down. And in that discussion, I can hear them talk about, like, therefore these three things have to happen, and these now naturally become the milestones of that project. So even if you're not a visual planner or a good project planner, just that conversation will allow you to document what success looks like and what are two or three milestones along the way, so that indications of success. Now you have visualized it, by the way, you've done it. And now you can share that with your team and get them involved in the visualization. They may disagree with you. They may say, I don't know, Patrick. I mean, over here, when you say green, it's like that. I don't think we can get there. Well, tell me why not. So I'll tell you why not. And then together we can begin talking about why that obstacle is a stumbling block and how to diffuse that stumbling block. So this is all part of the visualization process. I think if you don't visualize that way, then you're going to be surprised by obstacles because you just never saw them. But if you spend a bit of time thinking and planning that way, you will be able to think through the obstacles before they arrive, and
Yeah.
that's good.
I mean, it's almost forcing that curiosity that we were talking about earlier, just thinking it through and being curious about what's going to be make this priority a success, what's going to derail it, and getting
Yes.
really curious about what priorities we're actually setting, and not just throwing priorities up on the board either. Yeah, brilliant. You talked about a little bit, I think, about the system that you folks have at the moment, and I think you mentioned AI as part of your software and how you coach. And I was quite interested to understand how you are kind of
Yeah.
looking at AI both generally and in your own business, and how that's evolving the way you're coaching and doing things.
So I would say a few things about AI. I think AI is finally real. Finally
Okay.
real. You know, I'm an electrical engineer by training. So in the 1980s, I went to Cornell University, got my engineering degree. So back in the 1980s, we were already talking about AI, artificial intelligence at that time. And AI has gone through a couple of iterations, became machine learning
Yeah.
because we decided, well, we not we, but the world decided that um, there was no intelligence there. It's the machine learning. Okay, fine. So they changed it to machine learning. And then, you know, 2 years and a couple of months back, ChatGPT got released. This is back in November, 2 years ago. So ChatGPT released to the world is 2 years and 2 months old.
Yeah, that's
Released to the
right. Yeah.
world. Well, of course it was. It had its previous versions that were unreleased to the whole world yet. But I would say ChatGPT, when it came out in that November, that was 2 years and 2 months ago. Now, if you think about it, in 2 short years, it has revolutionized thinking already. So AI, for the first time, uh, is really, really here. Now, I say that because as an engineer, electrical engineer, I was surprised when I was in school to see that it takes about 20, sometimes 30 years for technology to come from the lab into the world. So it's been a long time for AI. So people may think AI happened overnight, but AI didn't happen overnight. It happened over decades of work and research and different iterations. So it's here. I would say, first of all, most people I've talked to uh, fall into two camps. Either they are like embracing it or they're dismissing it. And I would say to whether whichever camp you fall into, don't allow fear to be why you dismiss it
Yeah.
because it's not going to help you. Like it's here, whether you like it or not. It's kind of like there's certain principles that you just don't have a choice. Like, you know, my office is on the fifth floor here. If I jump out the window, I will die. I mean, it's called gravity.
Gravity.
It's called gravity. I don't like it, but I step out that window, I will die, or I'll break my legs. I mean, I'll probably die 5 floors up. I'm probably dead.
Yeah.
So,
There's a good
so
chance. Yeah.
yeah, it's gravity. I don't have a
Yeah.
choice, right? So AI, you don't have a choice. It's here and it's real. So I would say for those of us who are afraid and dismissive, I would suggest that we replace fear with curiosity. You don't have to like it, you don't have to want it, but you need to think it through and understand it. And so the first thing you should ask yourself is what is it that I don't yet know about AI? What are the assumptions I have made that are blocking me from from really understanding this. Now, if you're on the other camp that is like, oh yeah, embrace fully, this is great. Same process. Like, what is it that you don't know about AI that maybe you should be a bit afraid about, but you know, you're too excited. You're not even thinking about that. So same process. Like, what is it about AI that you don't yet know? What should you learn? Therefore, you then have a more balanced approach to AI. I can tell you that a lot of people I've talked to are already making the mistake of thinking about AI purely in automation. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, it's going to do the boring things for me.
It's going to be my
No,
internal. Yeah.
that's correct. That's called automation. That's called automation. So, um, you know, this is Mike Prager's story, not mine, but he had to do 7 speeches for his parents' I think it was his parents, like 60th wedding anniversary or something. So a huge party. And he said, how the hell am I going to write 7 speeches? So he took his stuff, sent it through ChatGPT, came back out, and then he didn't use what ChatGPT gave him, but he took what ChatGPT gave him, and it formed the base. It helped him with his creativity.
Yeah.
But he got 7 speeches done in 1 hour, not by getting ChatGPT to write it for him, but by using ChatGPT as a tool to assist him. He got it done in 1 hour. He said, Patrick, no way would I ever been able to have written 7 speeches that were witty and cute and nice and honored my parents in 7 hours. So
It's that kind of baking the cake and then you go and ice it. And you think of that
yeah, so
celebration
that's one
cake.
way. That's one way of using it. And I would suggest that everyone should be curious, think about AI from an intelligent perspective, not from an automation perspective. Because if you do, you miss most of the picture. So AI is different in that we as we as people are used to the idea of automation. We're not used to the idea of using using something that could help us refine or help us do a bit of thinking ahead of for us. How can AI be your thinking partner?
Yeah.
That's different from automation. So I think every company should be thinking about that. If you think that, oh, you know what, my company is safe because we're not, whatever categories you have, we're not ABC, so AI is not going to touch us. We're safe. Um, no, you're not safe. In fact, you're probably dead if you keep thinking that way. So you want to be really curious. You want to ask yourself, what can I go learn? What can I and I've talked to some of my clients who are saying things like, hey, when we consider a vendor, if they don't have some thinking or strategy of how AI is being used in the business, we probably don't want to work with them because that shows me that they're not forward thinking. It shows me that they're not being going to become more efficient in the future. We don't want to work with them. So again, not
Yeah.
because they don't have AI, but because by not thinking about it, it's already demonstrating that they're going to fall behind. So I
They're
think
showing that
steps
sort
you
of
just have to think about it. Yeah.
that finite thinking in a way. It's just, yeah.
Yes. So
And I
back to think,
remember,
plan, do.
yeah.
Apply think here. Spend time thinking and apply curiosity. Make yourself more open to learn.
I remember that with the cloud computing when we shifted to cloud, and there
Yes.
was so much resistance from a lot of vendors about it'll never go there. The big banks will never use cloud. It's never
Yes.
everything. Microsoft's never going to completely shift. Exchange server is always going to be around. It changes. I mean, if the one thing we learn,
Sure.
change.
Yeah.
Be curious
Yeah.
about it.
I was in college when CDs were really starting, and now my kids don't even know what a
We had the
cassette tape
same
is, right?
discussion last night with my
Right.
daughter.
Cassette
She's
tape. Like
23 or
what is
20.
that, right? So I still remember some discussion I had with some sound engineers because that was my major, and they would say things to me like, well, nah, digital music will never take over the real stuff, because it can't capture this concept. All the cons, all the cons and cannots are all opportunities because the music world went from that to CDs and then from CDs to digital streaming music
Yeah.
now, right? So all the cons became opportunities. Oh, that's going to have noise. All right, build a better filter system that gave you better noise reduction, things like that. So all the cannots really are opportunities for someone to innovate and solve problems.
And you're
So
looking at how you can build this into your coaching practice and your rhythm software at the moment to
yes,
help people to set their priorities better. Love it.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. We are a small shop because we're self-funded, but we believe that we can beat companies that have a lot more money than us because we're going to make a few of the right decisions. And so we are actually going to be releasing our version. Can't tell you too much yet about that, but we're going to be releasing something at the end of this first quarter that'll be really exciting. Where we're definitely using the power of AI to help our clients create much, much, much better execution plans.
Well, I hope when I get to Charlotte in April, May, I'll be able to see, you'll be able to tell me more
Oh
about that and
yes,
I can visit you.
yes.
um,
Thank you.
I'm one or two other things I'm curious about. we talked at the beginning of the show about your love of lighter chocolate and curiosity. What's something else not many people know about you?
Well, so I support this organization called Samaritan's Feet, and a lot of
I
people
saw
don't
it.
know that about me. They're a really cool organization. Manny Ohomie came from Nigeria, and he came to the U.S. on a basketball scholarship. Uh, but I'm not going to tell you his story, but he now has developed this nonprofit to create a world of zero shoeless people. So because over there in Nigeria and in parts of Africa, lots of people don't have shoes yet, and there's a lot of footborne disease that gets through the soles of your feet, and you die from that. So, Samaritan's Feet is 20 plus years old, and last year when he started 20 some years ago, I helped him build a strategy, and his first big heritage goal was to put 10 million shoes on people.
Wow.
And when we did that 20 years ago, we were like, that's crazy. But a year and a half ago, he achieved that. Actually, October of 2023, he achieved that 10 million shoes on kids. And the second, his new BHAG today is to envision a world with zero shoeless people. So uh, that's my
That's
passion piece where I love the fact that we are helping save kids.
so
That's what we do there.
we'll make sure to do something for Samaritan's Feet. And I come from South Africa originally. I was born in South Africa, and my partner's from Turkey, and she always gives me a hard time when we're down there with not wearing shoes. And it's kind of a thing in Africa. We often run around without shoes on. But it's very interesting. I hadn't realized that. I hadn't realized, and again, it goes back to that curiosity and learning something about you, that foodborne disease was such a problem. She's now got something that she can really give me a
Yeah.
hard time about when we're down there. Very
Yeah, it
interesting.
is true, and also back over there, if you don't have shoes, he told me that without shoes in Nigeria, the kids were not allowed to schools.
Yeah.
So part of it also was you had so it's a cycle of poverty that he felt he could break first with shoes. That's very interesting, right? So that's his starting point. He said, if I can put shoes on kids there, then first they can go to school. Second, it can reduce the illness from foodborne diseases, and over time, what they've realized now is that Samaritan's Feet has figured out the last mile. So Manny has a logistics background, and so today Samaritan's Feet has partnered with various organizations to actually deliver medicines and stuff that last mile because they are able to deliver shoes. So at the same time,
They can
they
deliver
can also
medicine.
deliver vaccines and things like that. So what he's realized in his journey is that without realizing it or without intending to, Samaritan's Feet has actually solved the last mile problem. So from a logistics standpoint, organizations can partner with him to deliver medicines and various things at the last mile, getting it to people.
And that's just one of those opportunities that comes out of having that bigger purpose, where
Yes.
you find something that you didn't originally intentionally kind of think of, and comes out through that. One last question I got for you. The name of the show is The Freedom Experience. What does entrepreneurial freedom or freedom mean to you?
So freedom for me means that I get to wake up every day and have maximum joy for what I do.
I love that word joy in there. Yeah.
Maximum joy for what I do. By the way, my oldest daughter, that's her name. Her name's Joy.
Joy.
Yes, her name is Joy. So maximum joy for what I do, and I think that that's a fragile thing that we have to nurture. I think that as an entrepreneur, there are times when you no longer enjoy your job. Well, I believe that the first part of not enjoying your job anymore is the loss of joy. You lose your joy. So, but oh my God, it's my company. I gotta come to work. I got people I can't disappoint. I got responsibilities. Okay. Once you start going down that path, you have already you're already doomed for me. So for
Yeah.
me, I want to have maximum joy. If I come to work and I'm not joyful, I need to figure out why. Like, what is it that's making me not joyful, and fix it,
How do I
nip it in
fix
the
it?
bud, so to speak,
Yeah.
before it becomes a real problem.
Brilliant. Patrick, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Well, Jean, thank you so much for inviting me. I've enjoyed talking with you.